In this video, we're going to be talking about how you can start to really grow your account. And this is not going to be for someone who is just starting off learning how to trade. You know, maybe if you've got $500 or $1,000 and you're kind of just barely dipping your feet in the water. This is going to be for people who have been trading for a little bit of time now, maybe a couple of years, and you've had some success, but your account is growing at a slower pace than you feel that it should be growing at. And a lot of times it's a very, very simple psychological fix, and it's a very, very simple technical fix. So we're going to talk about that and how exactly you can accelerate the growth on your overall account. So with that being said, we're just going to take one kind of example stock ticker to kind of go over this video. That stock is going to be NVIDIA. I'm very familiar with the price action on NVIDIA, trade it, you know, multiple times a week. So what we're going to do is we're going to use one of the strategies that I like to use in my community. That's using the 20 period moving average, which is a 20 SMA. That's using previous days high, low, as well as previous days and current days pre-market low and pre-market high. So what I have marked out here is the day's high on NVIDIA 195. I've also got yesterday's highs marked out here, as well as pre-market highs at 192.43. I've got the pre-market lows marked out here at 187.59, and I've got yesterday's low and pre-market low kind of marked out here at 178. So here's what I'm going to really focus on if you're having trouble kind of growing and accelerating that account. A lot of times when you have setups and a system in place where you're taking trades and you're identifying trades to take, you're taking too many trades, right? So, you know, to kind of make this very, very simple and very, very clear, it's like this. If I'm looking for a particular setup, you know, I'm taking it too many times, meaning that every time the setup is presenting itself, I'm taking the trade, or I'm trying to be a part of that move, or I'm constantly looking at, you know, 10 or 15 or 20 different stocks on my watch list, and I'm kind of scanning through those very quickly, and I see that setup present itself, and I take the trade. And then I see another one set up, and I take that trade. Instead of just kind of focusing in on like 3 to 5 ticker symbols, 3 to 5 stocks, and kind of looking for A plus setups versus just taking every C plus and B plus setup. So I'm going to kind of explain to you exactly what is a C plus setup, what is a B plus setup, what is an A plus setup, right? There's never a perfect setup, but just for me, I like to identify the different setups in grades, right? In categories to kind of understand, hey, this is a trade where I want to go more size. This is a trade where I want to go a little bit less size, right? I'm obviously not going to want to go max size on a C plus setup, right? I'm going to want to go max size where I've got a lot of room to run, and it's an A plus setup according to my strategy. So the thing here is, in order to build an account, you're going to have to kind of put your balls on the table, right? And excuse my French. And for you ladies out there, you're going to kind of have to set your purse on the table, right? So what that means is that instead of taking every single trade and going, I'll just use an example, taking 1, 2, 3 options contracts on every single setup, whether it be an A plus setup, a B plus setup, or a C plus setup, you're kind of always taking the same account or the same position sizing at every different setup. You need to be taking large size on your A plus setups, a little bit smaller size on your B plus setups, and then very small size on your C setups. And your C setups need to be, you know, you need to get in, take the scalping mentality, get in, take 10, 15, 20%, and just get the heck out of the trade. If the trade doesn't work within 1 to 15 minutes, might as well just cut it and then kind of wait for that next better setup to kind of present itself. And then when you see those A plus setups according to your strategy, you're going to really want to push your chips all on the table and really maximize those profits, because that's when you're going to have a good runner. So say, for example, you took 4 trades today, you lost on 2 of them, and you won on 2 of them, right? But let's say the first 2 trades that you took were pretty decent and good A plus looking trades, but you only took 2 contracts. So you took, you know, let's say $100 or $200 on those potential trades. And let's say the trades that you lost on, they were B plus and C plus setups, and you kind of took a $100 loss on each of those setups. You kind of broke even on the day, right? So all in all, you come out finishing the day either break even or down a little bit or up a little bit, when realistically you could have really maximized those profits on your A plus setups by going larger size. And what that's going to entail is you're going to need to have more confidence in your A plus setups. So your A plus setups have to be like things like A stock has no supply ahead, it's breaking pre-market highs, and it took out yesterday's highs along with it being over the 20 period moving average. That's an A plus setup. I want to play max size, right? So I want to go max size on that setup. If the day's a little bit more choppy and we're kind of just range bound trading, or it's an inside bar day like today where most of the price action you can see here is inside the price action from yesterday, then those are going to be more B and C plus setups. And we can kind of go through a couple of those right now. And if we kind of look at NVIDIA's 5-minute chart here, and I just kind of pull up today's price action, let's just kind of see what we got here on NVIDIA's price action. So the bottom trend line that I have here is yesterday's pre-market and yesterday's price trading sessions lows. So 187.59. If NVIDIA was to lose that price point today, to me, based on my trading strategies and my setups, as long as it's below the 20 SMA, it's breaking pre-market lows, it's breaking previous day's lows, that's an A plus setup for me. I'm going to go max size. My max size on a stock like NVIDIA is going to be anywhere between 10 to 15 options contracts. I'm going to take those 10 to 15 options contracts and I want to squeeze that 20, 30, 40% out. Now, mind you, not every trade's going to be 40%. You're not always going to get that. Those kind of big, 40, 50, 60% winners. But if you play 10, 15 contracts on an A plus setup according to your rules and strategy, a 20% gain is huge. A 20% gain could be a one and done trade for the day, right? But if you take 1 or 2 contracts on that breakdown, if it happens to go, and maybe you only make 50, 60 bucks, and then you take a couple of other scratch trades throughout the day, and then you kind of just, kind of piss away the day, right? So if we kind of look at the price action here, this here is going to be the pre-market highs, right? So if we kind of scroll over to the left here, pre-market highs on NVIDIA was sitting at 192.43. And then if we kind of look at the day's highs here, and I go back to this hourly candle, let's kind of look at the hourly candles for a second here. This 192.43 is the pre-market highs as well as yesterday's highs on NVIDIA. This is yesterday's lows. This is yesterday's highs. So if we were to break 192.43, is that an A plus setup or is that a C plus setup? Right? If we're over the 20 period moving average on the 1 hour time frame and we're over the 20 period moving average on the 5-minute time frame, is that going to be an A or C plus setup? Right? More closer to an A plus setup, right? We're over the moving averages, we're over our short-term supply, we're breaking the pre-market highs, we're also breaking yesterday's highs. I want to push 10 contracts, I want to push those 10 contracts and that risk to the middle of the table, excuse me. So by doing that, I'm going to be able to maximize that first A plus setup, right? So that trade went from a price of 192.43 up to a price of 194.91. That's a $2 and change move, a $2.50 move in a matter of 5 minutes. So $2.50 in 5 minutes. If you take 10, 15 contracts, that you are done for the day. There's no reason to keep looking for more trades after that. Now, if you only played 2 contracts on that $2.50 move, not saying that you didn't make some profit, maybe you made $100, maybe you made $200 on it, but it doesn't feel internally or psychologically that you made enough. So what you're going to do is start looking for more trades, and then you're going to start chopping yourself up, right? So if we kind of look throughout the day as to what happened, we kind of put in this high, pulled all the way back, right, to the 20 period moving average. There's no short position. Why? Because we haven't taken out the day's lows. We haven't taken out previous day's lows. We never took out pre-market lows. We're still trading over the 20 period moving average. This is just a pullback here. You could have tried to bounce this here. This would be like a C, B setup, play the bounce, use a close under the 20 as a stop loss, play the little bounce here, take 10, 15% on the way up, and then kind of sell out, wait for it to recover. The only other time we really got a setup here, this would be like a B setup, and I'm going to show you how to kind of play this. So we were trading over the 20 SMA pretty much all day until 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we started to get this close below the 20 period moving average, and then we kind of popped back up and reclaimed it. We never really took out this consolidation high, so this is telling me that there's still selling pressure going to the downside. These are things that you need to identify in real time, because if you cannot analyze and identify these this price action in real time, you're going to have a very hard time executing on the trade. So as I'm looking at this first close under the 20 period moving average, even though we kind of reclaimed it on the next candlestick here, and we didn't take out the consolidation highs, this is kind of telling me we could be getting ready for a weaker move. So if we do close below in the following candle, kind of confirms that, which at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time we get the close below, and at 9:35 we kind of get that confirmation below that low wick of closing below the 20 SMA. That price point was 191.68. Now for me, we are still over previous day's highs and still above the pre-market highs. This is not an A plus setup. This is more so like a B minus setup. It's just a trade I'm going to look to take. It's just a scalp that I'm going to look to take. I'm not looking to make 100% on this. If I buy, if my max size on NVIDIA is 10 to 15 contracts, then maybe I might play 5 contracts or 6 contracts on a setup like this, right? So this setup here over pre-market highs, over yesterday's highs, and over the 20 SMA, that's an A plus setup. I'm going in 10 to 15 contracts. This setup here is not over the highs. It didn't really take out the consolidation. We are trading over the 20. However, we never really, broke down below the pre-market lows. It's not really an A plus setup. This is more of just like a B average setup here. So I'm not going to go max size, because if it does decide to whipsaw me and then take me for a little bit of a ride to the long side and kind of stop me out, I don't want to get stopped out on 10 to 15 contracts. I'd rather get stopped out on 5 to 6. So that's why I'm going to size down on this. And again, because we are over that pre-market low and yesterday's low, I'm not looking for this to break down all the way. I'm just looking to get in when it confirms here at 9:35. And I just want to take this for a 10, 15, 20% ride if I can get it. If I start getting 10, 11, 12%, I'll start scaling out those contracts one at a time, one at a time, one at a time on each candle lower. And you can see from that confirmation, it goes from 191.66 all the way down to 189.62. So that's again a $2 move. So even though this $2.50 move on my A plus setup is $2.50, and this B setup I would consider a mid-tier setup went $2 as well, it's not as strong as this first initial setup for the reasons I've already stated before. So even though it was a $2 move, I necessarily wasn't going to ride the whole $2 move, because it took longer than 5 minutes. On this particular setup here, I made that 40% or 30% or 50%, depending on how many contracts you're taking and what strike price you bought. I made that relatively quickly within 2, 3, 4 minutes, versus on this setup here is going to take me 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. That's a lot of candlesticks to kind of sit through, a lot of choppiness action when you're actually watching those candlesticks in real time to kind of sit through. So I'm not looking to take, big size on that. This is what's called a B setup here. Now, we do get a confirmation later in the day here. There is a potential trade here that came at around 11 to go to the long side, and it did sort of pop. But if you kind of look here, from $191.33, it only went up to $192.43. So it only went up about 80 to 90 cents at this point in time. Now, this is what would be considered just a dead trade. This is, I'm not saying that we can't scalp this move, but what I'm saying is I'm not going to take 10 to 15 contracts like I would on this setup. And I'm not going to take 5 to 6 contracts that I would on this setup. And I'm not going to take, I'm not going to go back to my max or mid size on this setup, because it's later in the day. We have not broken the day's highs. We have not broken the day's lows. We've kind of just been trading sideways. I've identified the range that we're in, right? Here's the top of the range at 194. Here's the middle of the range at 192. Here's the bottom of the range at 187. We are range bound from yesterday's price action here. This would be considered a C plus setup, meaning that, yes, I might take this trade, but I'm definitely only going to go 1, 2, 3 contracts max. And on something like this, if this doesn't start to move, right? So I get into this trade here at 11:15. If it doesn't start to move in 5, 10, 15 minutes, I've got to cut it, right? I've got to cut it, because the longer I hold a C plus setup is the more opportunity that I'm giving it for it to come crashing down on me, right? So if you got into this play here and you started to ride it up and it's just kind of grinding higher and grinding higher and grinding higher, and you're up maybe 10% or 12%, 13%, You have to identify this has already been a shit price action day. We've already established that we're range bound. We've already established the day's high. We've already established the day's low. We've established that we're stuck in the middle here, right? So this is not going to be an A plus setup. Hell, it's not even a B plus setup. This is a low bottom hanging fruit C plus setup, meaning that it's a setup that I would take, but it's not a setup I'm going to go max size. It's not a setup that I'm going to look to, make a big fat bag on, right? It's just something that I'm going to take because of the pure technicals. I'm going to understand my stop losses here, right? Underneath this candle and underneath this 20 SMA. And I'm just looking for that 10 to 15%, right? But here's a scenario I want you to think about. If you played 2 contracts on this setup and you played 2 contracts on this setup and you played 2 contracts on this setup and you kind of rode this out and then you let it come back down and stop you out, did you really make any money today? No. Maybe you made a little bit of money here. You made a little bit of money here because you were selling quickly and scaling out. You got into this play here thinking it was going to break this consolidation and it did not. So you held it and now you got stuck in a downturn later on in the day, decay and your premiums, weren't worth as much. And then you get a big nasty drop very, very quickly and you lost some money on this trade here, right? So you kind of finished a day break even, up a little bit, down a little bit, depending on where you sold in this move and where you sold in this move. And you definitely lost in this move, right? Versus identifying what is your A plus setup, okay? What is your A plus setup? What is your B plus setup, right? What is your C plus setup? How do you identify what's an A, B, and C setup? An A setup is something that's taken out previous day's highs or taken out previous day's lows, and it's over or under that 20, and we're trending, right? A B setup is something that's in the middle of the range, but you've kind of established the day's range already, and you're kind of going to play the middle of the range down to the bottom of the range, or you're going to play the middle of the range up to the top of the range. It doesn't mean we're looking to take this short here because we're going to break the low of day. No. It means that we're going to take this setup here and just try to look to make 10, 12%. This setup here is a C plus setup because the price action has been shit all day. We understand that it's later on in the day. We understand that the volume is starting to dry up. And if we don't start to take this 5, 6, 10%, 12% on the way up, we're going to get creamed on the way down. Okay. So understand what your A, B, and C setups are. And when you wait and be patient enough and just kind of identify those A plus setups and put more size on your A plus setups, that's how you're going to really grow your account. Size down on your mid tier and your low tier setups, right? So we have high tier setups, which is your A plus setups, right? We have our mid tier setups, right? Which is, I'm going to classify as our B plus setups. And we have our low tier setups, right? Which is low hanging fruit. Trade looks good. There's potential to come back up here. If I take this and we do, and then we hit the day's high, I'm going to make a lot of money. Yeah, in theory, it sounds good, but realistically, look at the price action and understand that it's not really that good of a setup, right? So we do one of two things. We take the A plus setup and we maybe take this setup and maybe we say, hell, we made money here. We made a little money here. How about we just close the computer screen and go do something else here? Or we make a bunch of money here and we just turn off the computer screen. Okay. We need to get into a habit of going large on our A plus setups, right? Large on our A plus setups and turning off the computer screen. Guys, we're not trading to be trading 8 hours a day. We are trading for the freedom of time. We are trading because we can make somebody's week's salary in 5 minutes. You take 50 contracts of this NVIDIA play here in 5 minutes and get $2.50. You made somebody's weekly salary in 5 minutes. You made someone's 2-week salary in 5 minutes. Guys, you take 10, 15 contracts and you make $2 in 5 minutes. I can guarantee you're making more than the average American in 5 minutes than they're going to make in 2 weeks. I can guarantee you that. The average American, okay? We take an average American, the average middle class American that's going to be working, anywhere between $15 and $20 an hour for 2 weeks after taxes, this, that, and the other. If you take 10, 15, 20 setups and you get a $2.50 move, you're going to be making on par or more than what they are making in 2 weeks. I hope that makes sense. That's how you're going to be able to grow your account. You have to start identifying what is an A plus setup versus a B plus setup. We have to understand and identify what is a mid-tier setup versus a low-tier setup. How much size are we taking on a low-tier setup? Should be 1 to 2 contracts. How much size are we taking on a mid-tier setup? It should be 3 to 7 contracts, depending on your account size, 5 to 7 contracts, depending on your account size. What is our, high, our A plus setups sizing, right? For me personally, it's 10 to 15. Your account size might be different. Maybe you have a smaller account and maybe your A plus setups, you're going to go 5 contracts. And maybe your mid-tier setups, you're going to go 3 contracts. And maybe your low-tier setups, you're going to go 1 contract, right? You can kind of play around with the numbers, but if you're constantly playing 1 contract, 1 contract, and 1 contract on every single type of setup, you're never really going to grow and accelerate that account. I hope this video makes sense. If it did, make sure to smash the like button. Also subscribe, join the Discord. That link is down in the description box below, and I will see you guys all in the next video.